actually the first for the year, so happy 2025. The first webinar is on groundwater recharge and conservation. And my name is Getty Shinda, and I'm thrilled to be your host and moderator for this session this evening. Water is life. And in the SADC region, groundwater is a lifeline for millions. Yet, with increasing pressure on our water resources, how we recharge, how we conserve this hidden treasure is very, very important. And I'm happy to present today's title, which is Groundwater Recharge and Conservation, looking into how we can tackle this challenge. But before we get into the agenda, I'd like to announce a few housekeeping rules. So firstly, if you are not speaking, we kindly ask you to mute your mic. And we have a Q&A at the end, but you're also welcome to put your questions in the chat. We also have an attendance register, so we'd like to have everybody who's attending the webinar today to register. So Sichaba will put the registration link in the chat. And last but not least, at the end of the session, you will be given an option to fill out an evaluation form. So we kindly ask you to fill it out. Yes, that is the end of the announcement. We move into the agenda. I hope you can all see the agenda. It's shared on the screen. Firstly is the introduction and welcoming remarks, which I have briefly covered. The first speaker for today is Dr. Alice Orelli, who is our keynote speaker for today. And then he will be followed by John Sichone, who is a young professional. He will present his presentation today on groundwater storage depletion. Then, last but not least, of course, we have Nick, who will have a presentation on career progression in the water sector. So this is really a mouthful and very, very exciting. We can see that we have an incredible lineup of experts and our very own young professional who are passionate about safeguarding groundwater for the future. Our first speaker is our keynote speaker, who is, let me just kindly introduce her. Her name is Dr. Alice Orelli, who has been honored to serve as the head of the UNESCO IHB Groundwater Resource and Water Cooperation Department. She is recognized as a senior special advisor at the SADC Groundwater Management Institute, SADC-GMI, and where her expertise continue to contribute significantly to the water sector. Dr. Alice has experience in the management and governance of groundwater resources, and since 2002, she has been the coordinator of UNESCO's International Shared Aquifers Resources Management Initiative and responsible for the first inventory of the world's transboundary aquifers. She headed the UNESCO team that assisted the United Nations International Law Commission in preparing the draft articles of the Law of Transboundary Aquifers. She has been responsible for an extensive portfolio of capacity development projects, and she continues to teach in master's programs, supervise research activities, and even PhD students. She has recently she has been appointed Vice President of the International Water Resources Association. Let's give a virtual round of applause. And I personally met her about a decade ago. As I mentioned, she has been involved in development project. I met her under the Gigreta project, which was the Stamford Aquifer, Stamford Transboundary Aquifer, about a decade ago. And I am honored, and it's such a privilege to have her here with the young professionals in Reach, able to interact with her. Thank you very much, Alicia. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Getty, and thank you, everybody. I mean, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with.
We cannot hear, I think, the mic.
Can you hear me?
Okay, let me just make sure it's not from my end.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay, fine. So thank you very much for the invitation. So it's a real pleasure to be with the Young Professional Program of the SADC-GMI. I think that all my career was really looking at how to the new generation or young generation could better manage groundwater resources than what my generation did. So let me try to move on with trying to sharing my presentation. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
In a PowerPoint mode?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will start immediately. I mean, it's an introduction to definitely what are the main situation around groundwater recharge, IWRM and conjunctive surface water and groundwater management. Definitely looking at all the different interlinkages between the different possibility for maintaining groundwater resource in a sustainable way. Okay, let me take these out. Okay, so can you see the first slide?
Yes.
Okay, so meeting the increasing demand for food and water is definitely a critical issue nowadays. Actions are needed to review our groundwater and surface water management to achieve water and food security. Decades.
Sorry to disturb, Alicia. On my screen, it's still on the first. Yes.
Okay. So this is something that has to be changed.
Yes. So yeah.
Here?
Now it's on the second.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
Very
Meeting.
good.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So sorry. I briefly repeat, yes, we are in a critical situation because there is the need for having water security, but also the need to have food security. And of course, food security depends very much on our water resources. Unfortunately, decades of mismanagement have created a damage to the fresh water in the planet and, of course, to dependent ecosystems. Unfortunately, reports like the UN World Water Development Report is telling us that water resources are declining in quality and quantity due to poor management and now also to the impact of climate change, and that nearly 3 billion people and more than half of the world's food productions are now in areas where total water storage is projected. Storage, I'm talking about storage, is projected to decline. I don't have to tell you how much is groundwater important for the people and the planet. We know that drinking water, irrigation water, industry, and food productions depends on the way we are able to improve our management of groundwater resources. Well, if across the globe groundwater levels are finally really declining because our extraction is exceeding the natural replenishment capacity of aquifers, and we are now challenged by overexploitation, considering for the future and population growth, an increasing of effects of climate change, and alterations of rainfall patterns. The fact that the glaciers are melting this year is the first UN years of glaciers. pollution, contamination. I mean, all these threats are, of course, impacting severely to groundwater resources. So definitely we have to look at how to reverse these trends, how to adapt to the situation, how to improve the situation, and in particular, how to look at improving groundwater resources, quantity and quality. Sustainable land management practices and innovative recharge strategies are essential. So definitely we have to start understanding how to improve groundwater recharge mechanism, being these a real critical issue to have a resilient and sustainable water supply for future generation. So enhancing groundwater recharge, how to do it? What are the tools that can help us improve aquifer recharge? Well, one of the most recognized methods, group of methods, ensemble of methods is the managed aquifer recharge, something that we call MIR, MAR. And the MAR strategies in different possibility and situations. What it is, this approach? It's definitely the intentional way for addition of water to aquifer to address, in particular, overexploitation and provide environmental benefits. Management of aquifer recharge is a clear component, an important component to achieve integrated water resource management. Management of aquifer recharge is a water resource management tool, and these encompass a wide variety of water sources, recharge methods, and storage management practices. What are the benefits of MIR? It offers important advantages, restoring the depleted aquifer, improving water quality, controlling land subsidence, securing water resource against drought, adapting to climate change, and also preventing saline water intrusion and sustaining groundwater-dependent ecosystem. The technology, the methodology of MAR can also be used to retain unharvested urban stormwater and recycled water for productive use when needed. At the watershed scale, MIR can also be used to maintain the flow and availability of water for environment purposes by creating a delay in the discharge of water into a stream. In the EU Water Framework Directive, artificial recharge is another way to call management of aquifer recharge, is one of the management tools which can be used by member states and recommended to member states for achievement of good groundwater status. First of all, management of aquifer recharge methods, feasibility depends on aquifer characteristic and storage capacity. The design of MAR system and the selection of suitable locations depend on a variety of factors: geological, hydrogeological, geochemical, engineering, biological, soil properties, and landscape characteristics. Of course, recharge water can be stored both in unconfined and confined aquifers, considering, of course, the different porous capacity and permeability of this system. Another integral part of management of aquifer recharge planning is the availability of high-quality source of water. I mean, the water that can be used for recharge. Various surface water can be used for water storage in aquifer. This includes rainwater, water from rivers, from streams, from lakes, storm water, harvesting water, water harvested, desalination of seawater, and treated wastewater. According to the UNESCO International Groundwater Resource Assessment Center, the most widely used water resources for management of aquifer recharge is water from rivers, which accounts for the 52% of total usage, followed by stormwater, 18%, and treated wastewater with 8% of the total. As I said, management of aquifer recharge is complex and is is composed by different methods that can be used to store water in aquifer. The appropriate recharge method will definitely depend mostly on which aquifer is targeted for recharge. If the unconsolidated alluvium is targeted, then infiltration basin on trenches may be most effective. However, if the deeper hard rock aquifer is targeted, then boreal injections may be the only option. In this slide, you can see one of the sketch that are very well known because it's one of our, many of our UNESCO publications. So how should aquifer be recharged? As I say, there are spreading infiltration ponds, interdune ponds, stream bed modification, etc., etc. I mean, I don't want to go in the detail. In my presentation, you will find some information. In this slide, you can see some of these technology designed very, very in a simple way. Percolation tank, infiltration pond, dune filtration, bank infiltration, aquifer storage and recovery, and of course, the different MAR approaches, the direct and indirect. So, I mean, all these, in any case, are depending on the quality and the characteristic of the aquifer system that we want to replenish. But what is very much important is that, first of all, if we want to achieve a successful enhancement of groundwater recharge, we have definitely to implement a multidisciplinary assessment in order to identify the most appropriate artificial recharge techniques, and then also to develop the comprehensive policies and promote the community involvement. Essential component of a successful groundwater recharge strategy includes implementing, of course, sustainable, very clear sustainable land management practices. Well, it's also crucial to identify all actors involved, so all stakeholders, policymakers, landowners, local communities, etc., etc. It is crucial also to have there is a microphone open there. I think we should close our microphone. Yeah.
Yes, please. Please.
Yeah. I will continue. So, I mean, then also we have to establish a very clear hydroeconomic feasibility study. Another important component of a multidisciplinary assessment for enhancing groundwater recharge is the level of the country's institutional and legal framework on surface and groundwater is an important factor that is decisive for the successful application of managed aquifer recharge. It is then also essential to establish a groundwater operational management planning that can identify the different interventions and the different activities to be carried out at the field level, their timing, the budget, the funded program of action, and provide a blueprint for implementation. Well, UNESCO has just prepared a great publication on managing aquifer recharge that would like to help, of course, water resource managers and potential use of managing aquifer recharge. The publication provides a comprehensive overviews of existing knowledge on MRR and presents 28 different cases of MAR projects in different regions that give an idea of the different water sources used, the different method of recharge in the different aquifer types. When at the end of this work that UNESCO did with many experts around the world, we have definitely recognized the importance of the benefits of artificial and managing aquifer recharge around the world in different situations and conditions. Well, one of the case studies that I want to show, because it's quite interesting, in the Netherlands is the wastewater reuse of the wastewater of a sugar factory used for drought resilient irrigation supply with the aquifer storage and recovered the methodology with this treated wastewater. The wastewater was treated and purified in order to be high quality irrigation water using ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis. And this was give the people the possibility to bridge temporal mismatch between the availability of water and the demand in the most arid periods between April and August. Well, if we want to have more information about management aquifer recharge around the world, we have to look at Integrated Water Resource, International Groundwater Resource Assessment Center of UNESCO, IGRAC, and its MAR portal, where they have some more than 1,000 management of aquifer recharge sites about in 50 countries around the world, and the maps that are available in the MAR portal. What, of course, is not yet on stage is the fact that even if management of aquifer recharge is improving, unfortunately, the replenishment is at the worldwide at the moment, it's much less than what we are, of course, exploiting. Oh, in this slide, you can also see the different distribution of these more than 1,000 management of aquifer recharge case studies. And we can immediately see that there is scope for further development of management of aquifer recharge in Africa. There is a real important portion of the continent where this methodology has not yet used. I mean, if we look at the UN World Water Development Report on groundwater that was published in 2022, we can definitely listen from the UNESCO experts results that, well, management of groundwater in sub-Saharan Africa is currently insufficient, particularly to the lack of investment. Well, what is critical is the lack of groundwater monitoring, not only in Africa, but in many countries around the world. This is definitely a crucial issue because we cannot manage what we don't measure. Well, management of aquifer recharge is, as I said, a very powerful tool to enhance groundwater recharge, but it's also a powerful tool to contribute to conjunctive water resource management. We know that until now, very much fragmented approaches have been implemented to water resource development and management. Surface water and groundwater management have historically been approached from separate perspectives. Now, if we want to improve water resource sustainability, we definitely need to look at improving conjunctive water resources, surface water resource, and groundwater resource management. UNESCO has just published a book on conjunctive water management with the definition of being the approach to water resource management in which surface water, groundwater, and all other components of the water cycle available are considered as one single resource and therefore should be managed in the closest possible coordination in order to maximize overall benefits from water at the short and the long term. Of course, you can find all this UNESCO publication in the UNESCO doc website. So we need specific guidelines for planned conjunctive water management because until now, these don't exist. And we definitely have to develop it. The objective is to promote management of aquifer recharge, so enhancement of aquifer recharge methodology for improved conjunctive management of surface and groundwater. A great example of contribution of management of aquifer recharge to conjunctive management is the one of the Genovese aquifer, the transboundary aquifer shared between Switzerland and France, where the water pumped from the river Arve is sent because this program started in the 80s. It's sent to water treatment plants and then filtered out and cleaned through different treatment steps, and then infiltrated into the underground. And all the region depends very much on these technology and on these plant, artificial recharge of the aquifers. The lake of Geneva also depends very much on groundwater, and these, of course, it's a crucial issue for the area. Well, looking at transboundary aquifers from the national to transboundary level, if we look at the report just presented by UNECE and UNESCO in last October about the indicator CIS52 on water cooperation, in particular for Southern Africa Development Community, we can see that there are only 8 countries that have 90% or more of their river and lake basin, surface water I'm talking, river and lake basin area covered by operational arrangements. That is not too much, but at least is there. Why only 2 countries have 90% or more of their transboundary aquifers covered by operational arrangements? And when we talk about transboundary aquifers, if there is no cooperation, of course, you can use whatever you have the best methodologies. The aquifer will decline and the impacts will be, of course, very strong. Conjunctive management of groundwater and surface water. Well, let's say that there are good examples in the African continent, the new Senegal-Mauritanian aquifer basin, the coordination between the River Senegal, the Gambia River Basin, and the aquifer. Members countries have signed a sort of coordination agreement. The ITAS project, that is again a project where UNESCO is involved, where we have the basin of the Niger River and the aquifer, the Ulemed and Taudeni, where we are teaching exactly conjunctive management. The Stamplied aquifer that you know very well, it's one of the best examples of looking at surface water and groundwater in a coordination manner with the multi-country cooperation mechanism and the Groundwater Hydrology Committee of the Orange Secours River Commissions that was established at the time. And other examples in these slides. Well, I think I took a lot of time, and I want really to thank you for inviting me. And I'm here if there are any questions to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alicia, for a very, very good presentation. I'm sure the young professionals have enjoyed it, and they have burning questions, which will be addressed at the end at the Q&A. I'm very happy to see that you have actually showed where you left off, you and your team, and the gaps that are there for the young professionals to fill, particularly the scope for further development of managed aquifer recharge in Africa. And we also saw some SADC countries that were not represented on the map. So it's a good thought for young professionals to see how they can contribute to this area of managed aquifer recharge. Thank you very much, Alicia. I see we have a number of people that joined. I just want to go through the house rules once again. When you are not speaking, kindly mute your mic. And we have a registration link in the chat. So for all the people that joined, kindly click on the link and register. And at the end of the webinar, there will be an evaluation survey. So we kindly ask you to fill in the survey. Thank you very much. So up next is a young professional. His name is John Sichone, and he will be representing the young professionals tonight. I'd like to warmly welcome John Sichone, who is a research associate at the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences, where he contributes to sustainable and healthy food systems. He holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Environmental Studies from the Catholic University of Malawi and is a prospect Master's of Science candidate in Civil Engineering at Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences. John has earned multiple professional certifications, including Earth Observation Technology in Agriculture, Data Visualization, Cartography, and Remotely Piloted Aircraft Technology. Throughout his career, John has held various roles such as water resource management and spatial technologies. As a water supervisor, he specialized in WASH technologies, community capacity building, and he serves as a GIS specialist at the Center for Research Consult, where he oversees spatial data analysis and GIS database management. So with that said, welcome, John, and kindly share your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen. Yeah, so thank you much, Kitty, for that small introduction.
John, we cannot see your presentation.
You can't see my presentation. Okay. All right, let me share it. Okay.
Yes.
Right. It's shared, yeah?
Yes, now we can see it. Please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank the SADC-GMI Young Professionals Management for giving me the platform to talk about my research. I feel really, really honored, and I'm excited, really excited about it. So, yeah, my name is John Sijone, and I'll be talking on the assessment of groundwater storage depression using GRACE and land surface models in Mzimba district, northern Malawi. Yeah, so I'll talk on the background, the problem, the study area, which is Mzimba district, the methodology I used in my study, the results, the recommendations, as well as areas that we may need further studies. So out of the water we use on the planet, 3% of that is fresh water. And 69% out of that 3% is water stored as glaciers and ice caps. And 30% is water stored as groundwater. And only 1% is water that exists as surface water. So we can see that groundwater exists in enormous amounts than surface water. So in Malawi, according to a well-known media house, Times, Malawi in 2024, about 80% of Malawians use groundwater, and 73% of water points are groundwater-based. And around 85% of Malawi's districts depends on groundwater. So we can see how important groundwater is as far as water and sanitation is concerned in Malawi. However, in many parts of the world, groundwater reserves have depleted. Yeah, however, in many parts of the world, groundwater reserves have depleted to the extent that well yields have decreased, pumping costs have risen, aquatic ecosystems have been damaged, and land has irreversibly subsided. And according to Doe and Friends in 2009, the global groundwater depletion rate was estimated to be around 113 cubic kilometers per year during the period from 2000 and 2009, where about 15% of the globally abstracted groundwater was taken from renewable resources. And on the other hand, in Nairobi, Kenya, groundwater level had declined about 4 meters on average over the entire aquifer area between 2000 and 2020. That's according to Arroyo and Friends in 2020. So you can see groundwater depletion is a very challenging issue in Africa and across the world. So as groundwater depletion continues worldwide, its impact worsens, portending the need for objective analysis of the situation and the possible solution. So studies like this becomes very, very important when it comes to groundwater recharge and conservation. So the problem part, so Malawi is one of the least countries in the SADC for groundwater assessment. That's according to UpGrow in 2020. So if you put Malawi with the Namibia or Botswana, the desert countries, Malawi is a little bit behind these countries, which is a bit sad for us as Malawians. So according to WaterAid in 2022, the groundwater quantity faces increasing threats from both natural and anthropogenic activities in Malawi. Firstly, the growing population has inevitably increased groundwater pumpage, and climate change has adversely reduced groundwater replenishment, just nearing into what Dr. Aris already presented on it. So the table shows a borehole functionality in Mzimba district, very traditional authority, which was obtained from the Mzimba socioeconomic profile of 2017. So out of 2,943 boreholes, 564 were recorded as not working, which represent about 18% of boreholes non-functional in the district. So these 18 boreholes has been abandoned, with a bigger pie being caused by a lowering water table, though a few percentage were due to some mechanical faults of the hand pump. But lots of boreholes were due to the lowering of the groundwater level. So this study contributes to the understanding of groundwater quantity fluctuation in the district, and also contributes to the management of groundwater resource at both micro and macro levels. So the study was done in Mzimba district, which is it's a district located in the northern part of the country. And it is also the Malawi's largest district, with a total area of 10,430 square kilometers, with the population estimated at 610,944 as of 2018. That's according to the National Statistical Office census of 2018. I hope, I think we hope to have another population census in 2028, where we probably believe that we will be hitting close to 1 million population in the district. So the district experiences a yearly temperature of 23.13 degrees Celsius, which is around 0.11% higher than Malawi averages. And the district again receives about 177.87 millimeters of rainfall and has around 159.08 rainy days, which is around 48.58% of the time annually. So the district is divided into 4 topographic units. We have the Upper South Ukuru Valley, we have the Vipio Plateau, we have the Central Mzimba Hills, and we have the Upper Kasitu Valley. And the district also have 3 drainage systems. We have the South Rukuru River system, which drains most of the western part of the district. And we have the Kasitu River system, which drains much of the western side of the district. And we have the Luelezi Dwangwa River system, which drains most of the southern part of the district. So the geology of the district determines the hydrology of the district. And so there are 2 aquifer units in the district. We have the Precambrian basement aquifer, which is a high-yielding aquifer, and we have the alluvial sedimentary aquifer, which is a low-yielding aquifer. So, according to the National Water Resource Master Plan, the Precambrian basement aquifer has an annual recharge between 12 to 62 millimeters per year, and the alluvial sedimentary aquifer has an annual recharge between 9 to 56 millimeters per year. So on the methodology part, the study used GRACE data and land surface models. So a bit of overview on the GRACE mission. So GRACE mission so GRACE is an acronym which represents Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment. So it is a joint mission between National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA of the United States, and German Aerospace Center of Germany, with key contributions from the Geoforschungszentrum, that's German, which translates to German Research Center for Geosciences. So as you can see in the picture, those are gray satellites in orbit around the Earth. So some people call them the Tom and Jerry satellites because you have a satellite in front which acts as it's running, and you have the leading satellite which acts as it's chasing. So some people call it the Tom and Jerry satellite. So GRACE is unique. Is unique in the sense that it is the first satellite remote sensing mission which is directly applicable to groundwater storage estimation. So the twin satellites fly in tandem to each other in a polar nearly circular orbit at an altitude of 500 kilometers and an inter-satellite separation distance of 220 kilometers. So as the satellite hovers around the Earth, the assistancy of the Earth causes the twin satellites to either accelerate or decelerate due to changes in gravity being recorded at the time. So as the image shows, as the satellite passes through a mountain range, the leading satellite decelerates, followed by the trailing satellite due to high gravity being recorded at the time. And as the satellite leaves the mountain range, the leading satellite accelerates, followed again by the trailing satellite, which then catches up. So this intersatellite distance, these changes in intersatellite distance is recorded as K-band level 1 data, which is available in the form of spherical harmonic coefficients. So these spherical harmonic coefficients is further processed at the NASA's data processing facility at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to express the gravity field changes as equivalent water thickness, which is sometimes represented as IWA thickness. So this IWA thickness is what's referred to as the terrestrial water storage, TWS. So as the name terrestrial suggests, it's like it's the summation of water that's available on land. So you talk of groundwater, you talk of soil moisture, you talk of surface water. It's all embedded into that data set, the terrestrial water storage, TWS. So the applicability of GRACE to groundwater storage estimation can be or is done using what we call water budget equation. So as you can see on the equation, we have the change in terrestrial water storage, which is obtained from GRACE, being equal to this change in surface water, which is obtained from a global surface water explorer, plus the land surface model obtained from GLDANS, which is the Global Land Data Assimilation System, representing the change in soil moisture, change in soil moisture storage. And we have the groundwater part, which is our emphasis as far as GRACE is concerned. So one of the challenges with GRACE is that it is obtained at a spatial resolution of 1 degree by 1 degree, which is applicable to study area that are over 100,000 square kilometers. So in this regard, we employ, like, let's say if you are working on a study area which is a little bit smaller than those study area, those areas that are applicable, that are applicable to the GRACE's spatial resolution, we employ some downscaling procedures. So in my case, I used the artificial neural network called the material perceptron to downscale the GRACE to a final resolution applicable to my hydrological needs at a local scale. So the GL dance land surface model was obtained at a spatial resolution of 0.25 by 0.25 degrees, which again is applicable to study areas that are more than around 30,000 square kilometers. So my study area was around 10,430 square kilometers. So these two data sets were downscaled to obtain a final resolution applicable to my study area. So the figure shows the flow chart of my data processing data processing procedures, and the MLP model that I used in my analysis was learned using the following parameters. So the hidden layer size was the hidden layer size used was 24, 16, 12, 6, and 4, which was determined through trial and error method. And the band size used was 23642, and the solver used was the limited memory Bloyd and Fletcher Goodfarm shallow algorithm, BFGS, and the activation function used was the liquefied linear unit, and the learning rate used was 0.0011. So on the result part, those figures show the downscaling procedures, as I said, of GRACE and geodance land surface model. So GRACE was downscaled from a spatial resolution of 0 degree by 0 degree to a spatial resolution of 0.012 degrees by 0.012 degrees. And again, the geodance land surface model was downscaled from 0.21 degrees by 0.21 degrees to 0.012 degrees by 0.012 degrees. So from my analysis, the average counter depression rate from Zimba aquifer was rated to be around minus 1.0, positive minus 0.06 centimeters per year, which is equivalent to around 0.1043 cubic kilometers per year. And the lower depression rate was noted in the eastern part, which complies of the Chikangawa Forest Plantation and the Mzuzu City, which recorded around 0.4, possible minus 0.06 centimeters per year. And the higher depression rate was noted in the western side with the about minus 1.2, possible minus 0.06 centimeters per year. And on the temporal distribution of contour depression, the monthly variation of GRACE JPL iowa thickness and the glandular storage increased from November until April. So I think that reflects that during that period of time we have it's a rainy period in Malawi. That's why we kind of observed like a slight increase in groundwater storage and the iowa thickness, the residual water storage. So there was some decline noted during the month from April to October. So this is like the dry season where we have no rainfall. So yeah. So I compared the groundwater depletion trends with some drought indicators. So the drought indicators I used was the downward surface shortwave radiation and the actual evapotranspiration EAT. So the correlation I obtained from that was that the relationship between the groundwater depletion trends in the district and the downward surface shortwave radiation was around negative 0.68, whereas the relationship between groundwater storage and actual evapotranspiration was around negative 0.56. So we can see that drought probably could be one of the contributing factors of such depression trends. But though we could be also attributing to the population the growth of population, I think that's why also we need to do more research on that to say how is population affecting our water the groundwater resources in our local aquifers. So in conclusion, groundwater is really depleting in our local aquifers. So GRACE in this regard can be applied to assess groundwater level trends at both local and regional scales to inform policies aimed at scaling up effort for groundwater recharge and conservation. And on the recommendation part, I developed some recommendations as far as our country is concerned, and again, recommendation at a regional level. So a recommendation, as far as my country is concerned, I suggest that I think if we can maintain and restore groundwater monitoring wells could be really important to enhance data collection of groundwater levels. And again, enhance climate change mitigation measures to reduce the prolonged drought so that we foster groundwater recharge. And again, I suggested that if we can establish a standalone groundwater assessment and monitoring authority, could be better for our country, I think, to enhance the assessment of the water resource. So at a regional wise, I think it could be important to extend the use of GRACE data as well as other auxiliary data, including NOAA, for integrated groundwater assessment in the region. And again, extend collaboration between SADC-GMI and other groundwater bodies on restoring and maintaining monitoring wells to enhance the correction of groundwater level data. So this study, I think, can be extended to other countries through SADC networks, such as our own SADC-GMI, WaterState, as well as the Global Water Partnerships for Southern Africa. So we can extend such studies to countries like Botswana and Namibia, because these are desert countries, I suggest. So employing these studies in these countries could be really important as far as management of groundwater resources is concerned in the region. So I brought with me a quote by Nelson Mandela, which says, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." But personally, I think empowering the youth is the way you can use to change the world. So thank you much for listening, and yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, John, for a very, very good presentation. And I'm very happy that it ties in very well with Alice's presentation, especially on the fact that we cannot manage what we don't measure. I do have a couple of questions for you, but
you.
we'll leave that at the Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we'll move it to the Q&A. So without wasting time, I see Sechaba has put up the next presentation. Or is it? Or is it Nick? I'm just trying to locate Nick to put him on spotlight so we can see him. Yes. All right. Yes. Our next presenter is Nick, Mr. Nick Tandy. I'd like to warmly welcome you to the Young Professionals webinar. So Nick is a senior specialist in the water and urban team at the Global Center on Adaptation. He manages technical assistance projects on urban climate resilience and climate resilient water services in Africa and Asia. He was previously a senior water resources management specialist at the World Bank with a 2030 Water Resource Group, and he held positions at Stockholm International Water Institute, SIWI, CapNet, UNDP, WaterNet, SWPN, where he managed technical assistant programs and capacity building on water resource management and city water resilience, not only in Africa, but in Asia and Latin America. So with that said, thank you very much, Nick, for making time to join us on the Young Professionals webinar. Welcome.
Thanks, Getty. I really appreciate the kind introduction. I'm sitting in Rotterdam in the Netherlands since 2.5 years ago. And so having left the region since then, I just wanted to start by saying Jambo, Wanji, Ola, Sawona, Dumela, Makadi, to colleagues that are on the discussion today. For this discussion, which is a little different because I'm not a groundwater specialist from what you've just heard, I chose two words because of what I think are their profound meanings. One is, of course, deliberate, which you could replace with intentional. And I'd really encourage colleagues on the webinar today in the chat to just also throw in the opposite of deliberate and intentional. And once you do that, the essence of why being deliberate, setting goals, for example, becomes quite important. And just like John on this one, I have my own saying as well. John had the saying from Nelson Mandela. So mine is, if you don't know where you're going, then it means any road will take you there. The second keyword for me would be progression, which you could replace with growth. And I would be keen again at a later stage in the chat to know what your own indicators of growth are, but I can share a few ideas. So before I move on into the actual presentation, I just wanted to say, I'm going to share some ideas that you should not consider them as one size fits all, because they are biased towards my own experiences, right? I've been involved mostly in technical assistance and capacity building. So I encourage you then to combine those with other ideas before you then form your own opinion. And then some of the things are just reinforcing some common sense that you either already know or have been thinking about. I'm on the second slide now, just to check if my presenter slide mode is working well. Getty, could you let me know if this
Yes, Nick, your presentation mode is not previewed.
Okay.
I thought you were still just busy with setting the scene. So kindly share it because
Okay.
we cannot see it
So you
yet.
second slide.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what do I do to do this?
I get it.
The first slide is on. Yes, Achaba, go ahead. Okay, I see the second slide.
The second slide. So
I think it should be okay now. Unless Achaba, did you want to say something?
I was going to say I can see it from my side.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just make sure that the slide progression is a little slow. So basically, I wanted to talk about two main themes, right? One is a theme I thought to call excellence at the basics, right, as a key component of planning for career progression. And then the second is finding opportunity in crisis. So why excellence at the basics? For me, you know, there was a 2017 study by a Harvard professor called Rafaela Sadu, and I found it quite profound that out of a survey of 15,000 organizations in 34 countries to find out which firms were well managed, her study came up with 6% of those. And in that 6% of well-managed firms, she could find out that the ones that were well-managed, those 6%, what they focused on more was being good at the fundamentals, right? Getting the basics right and being excellent at the basics, to the extent that being excellent at the basics became a competitive advantage, right? So this idea grabbed me a lot. And throughout my career, as I've tried to test if this is actually true, for the most part, I have found it to be true also for individuals, I would like to say, and for organizations. And by the way, that picture you see, I've taken it from a website of Silulu Mamanzi. It's a public-private partnership in the city of Mbombela, in South Africa. It's a secondary city. And I was there, I think, about 7 years ago. This is not a picture I took. I just took it from their website. But and I encourage you to read the case study of how this public-private partnership is kind of really showing excellence in water service provision, including for low-income households. You know, and just to give you a small picture, I mean, when I was there, I could talk about a lot of things, but what still strikes me up to today is I went to the customer care center for that utility, right? Clear signage, clean place, and this is in a low-income neighborhood, by the way. Queues are moving. The people that were serving the clients are polite. And just that sense of getting those basics right. It extended, of course, when we took a tour of the wastewater treatment facility, etc. You get a sense of, it reinforced for me, it reinforces this idea of getting the basics right. So I thought these basics, and this is an idea to throw at you, is one, technical depth and breadth, second one, communication, and then team engagement. And then lastly, I will talk about finding opportunity in crisis, because I once announced on LinkedIn that I would want to talk to young professionals about planning for an international career. We're living in a dynamic time now. I think it's best you would all agree to delay that talk, right? So then I try to change it for now to a couple of points around, you know, with all this dynamism that's going on the global stage, where could we find opportunity in that, right? So now let's get to those three basics of preparing for your career, right? So the way I thought about this is a simplification of, I think, what is a complex topic, right? And I have been involved in the past 2.5 years, quite a few recruitments, right? But even more than that, in my whole career, I've been involved in a lot of procurement, right? Procuring technical expertise. And always one thing we were doing in comparing teams, individuals, was to kind of say what sets apart a good, a great, and a good, an average, good, great person. And always the start was, do they have, as the foundation, do they have technical depth, right? And the suggestion I give here is, one way to look at it could be that technical depth is within any function that you find yourself in. It doesn't really matter whether you are doing monitoring, or you're doing asset maintenance, or you're operating a treatment plant. If you are able within that function to show that you have, number one, you know what you do, so that one is assumed, right? What you call your area, you really know, and you have done this work over a period of time that allows you to accumulate real wisdom, right? So I would say for junior positions, you're looking at 3 to 5 years, let's say, and then more. within your specific area. But so on the program cycle at the bottom of this graph is how I try to illustrate a depth. So depth might be within your own area of, say, utility operations, but then there's an expectation, I think, that over time you go a little bit sideways as well, right? Get some exposure to program management, get some exposure to something else. I myself am in technical assistance, and I've tried to do technical assistance that is oriented towards, for example, operations. So that's at the bottom. That's about depth regardless of your function. If you are looking for a senior or leadership role, then the other question becomes, even mid-level, is there some breadth, right? So some breadth is, okay, we've seen that you understand monitoring, right? You understand the research that you're doing or asset maintenance. Have you any exposure to anything slightly higher in terms of integrating multiple functions? And there I use an example of water resources planning, because that's not only demand supply analysis, it sometimes then leads to decisions about how to allocate water. It leads to a lot of engagement with users. And then a much more higher level, and this is almost a must for any leadership positions, is that you've got some strategic insights, right? And I just use one example here, is how are you allocating capital, and it could be policy making, etc. So that's, do you have depth, right? Depth, I think for me is the foundation, the real foundation of excellence at the basics. And then do you have breadth? We would like, I think, in a perfect world, to have this line where we progress, right? Say from the sort of upstream of the project cycle, preparation of a project or technical assistance, to program management, to say operations, at the same time having more integrative roles. But let's be honest, life doesn't usually work like that, right? So it doesn't really matter how your specific trajectory looks like, as long, and by the way, that blue one is kind of mine, which is weird. As long as you are showing some depth, some breadth, I think it makes for a solid kind of candidate from the viewpoint of where I work, especially in technical assistance. I'm keen to know from you in the chat. I can't see it. I'll just try to adjust my screen a bit. What is your own indicator of growth, right? Please just type it. But I would suggest, if you read just online what people say about growth, for example, is some people will say, and I say this with jest and with also being serious, is if you're not learning, make sure you're earning. If you're not earning, make sure you're learning, right? So those two as being some of the anchors, right? And if you can have both, but if you don't have at least one, then you need to take a step and reflect. I would add my own two. For me, I also appreciate a growing autonomy over my work. Another indicator is the level of delegation you get for making decisions or managing a budget. And that's kind of a long-term indicator of where are you progressing to. So number one, in excellence at the basics, just have some depth, and then to some extent have some breadth. It doesn't have to be as wide as we present here, but it can be any sideways and upwards movement. Then I wanted to mention two related ones: communication and engagement. Why communication? I worked in CAPNet, which at the time was hosted by United Nations Office for Project Services for 4 years. And UNOPS, as the name says, United Nations Office for Project Services, is of course a project management unit. So they're really, really good at this. And by the way, I'll be ending very soon. I know, I'm at 10 past. They ran a survey when I was there every year to say what sets apart a great manager from a good manager from an average manager. Very fascinating. Year in, year out, communication, everything being equal, communication set these people apart. So there I use the results chain. It's just illustrated. Right? One skill I would encourage to learn would be how do you in writing convey a complex idea? And a complex idea, for example, could be a results chain, right? What is an outcome that we want from the project, right? And an outcome is typically a change in an organization or in an individual, in behavior, or in some way, right? What are the activities, the things we're going to do to get there? What is the output, the tangible thing that we get out of those activities? And how do they all come together? How exactly does that tangible output lead to the outcome that we wanted? What assumptions are we making? This is a typical results chain. You've seen it, but to write it down in a 1 or 2 page into a concept note, it is a boring but great skill that can set you apart in terms of these excellence at the basics. Meetings. Why meetings? Right? You'll see different sort of statistics. So I'll just quote some here. Harvard says 23 hours, executives spend 23 hours a week in meetings. That's a lot of time, right? And then a lot of stats say 30 to 50% of meeting time is wasted. So here my thoughts would be, make sure you're not in those, if you can, meetings that are wasting your time. But if you are designing a meeting, then design one that is useful. Basically, I think there are 3 types of meetings, right? You're either having a meeting to get a decision from your boss, offer them some options, or you're having a meeting for brainstorming, problem solving, in which case design the right questions for the people around the room, as opposed to just any comments, right? Any comments will likely lead you to these kind of problems. And then if it's an information meeting, that's a little bit more straightforward. Always have an agenda, etc. And then one of the biggest investments, I think, we ask this question in interviews all the time. What has been your experience in dealing with a disagreement with a colleague or with a government official or with a partner, etc.? And what did you learn? Is to learn how to manage conflict. And big up to Alicia here. I've used your material from Conflict Cooperation from a long time ago with Peter van der Zak to train on this subject. It's a subject I love, and I want to offer to this group, if they're interested in a session just on conflict management, I'm happy to do that. So excellence at the basics, right? Have a solid technical foundation, learn some communication, and then learn some engagement, right? How do you manage engagement? Very lastly, and then I'll end there. We know that donor financing is decreasing rapidly all over, right? That's, in a sense, if that's been a part of your financing, can be depressing, even more so for the people that are beneficiaries of the work that we do. But there are, I think, some opportunities in this a downside, right? One, for sure, is with the decrease is coming almost with all the announcements I'm seeing so far, an intention to decentralize the financing to local organizations and less international ones. So it puts you in driver's seat. The third one is, I actually should have added AI as one of the excellence of the basics. I think this is a no regret investment, an equalizer, I would like to think, to have some AI literacy, at minimum learn prompt engineering. And then for those who are more advanced, it's not that difficult to actually fine tune an AI model that can make you, estimates are what, 15 to 30% more productive in your work. So just some ideas, some of them common sense, some of them boring stuff you've always known, but hopefully kind of, if they resonate, hopefully help you with being intentional about your career progression. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Very, very engaging, exciting presentation. I see the young professionals have actually answered some of your questions in the chat there. Thank you very much. I see that. We have some time for questions. I'm just trying to